Well, welcome everybody, and we'll open the meeting. I'll ask anybody to declare a conflict of interest at the proper time, if you have one. The minutes of the previous meeting, can I have somebody Colin, approve them? John? All in favor? Pass. This is minor variance S 451. Application 244422 Ontario Incorporated. Concession 4 North Egmont Road, South Plot, Lot 16, South Quarter, Lot 16. East side of Bethel Road between Burnham Line and Brickyard Line. The construction of 3 grain bins with an approximate footprint of 157 meters squared. An associated drying pad. 2 of the proposed grain bins necessitate variances related to regulations associated with the agricultural 1A1 zone, as well as the special setback provision of the zoning bylaw. But more specifically, the grain bin A with a total of approximate 95 square meters have a front yard setback of 4.5 meters where 20 meters is required as per the agricultural 1 agricultural regulations from table A of the zoning bylaw. The grain bin B with a total of approximately 23 square meters have a front yard setback of 16.5 meters where 20 meters is required as per the agricultural 1 agricultural regulations from table A of the zoning bylaw. Take notice that an application under the above file number will be heard by the Committee of Adjustments November 1st, 2022 at 6 p.m. at Council Chambers in the Township of Warwick Municipal Office. I'll ask the Secretary to read the dates and places of the notice of the public meeting.
Notices were sent by regular mail and posted on the property on October 18th, 2022.
I'll ask the Secretary to read letters, submissions supporting or opposing the application.
There were 2 submissions received, one from the St. Clair Conservation Authority, and they said that the eastern portion of the subject property is regulated by the Conservation Authority under OREG 17106 and contains a significant woodland. Based on the submitted site plan and the proposed grain bins are entirely outside of the regulated area and the significant woodlot, the Conservation Authority has no concerns with the proposed application. The second one is from Building Services at the county, and it says, all construction must cease until the minor variance process is 100% complete. No concerns as it relates to an after the fact permit, provided adequate drawings and engineering is provided and approved. Building permit fees will be applicable. General grading must be maintained and no new accesses unless approved by the applicable Public Works Authority.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll summarize the report. I won't go into every single word here, but just for simplicity's sake, I'll go through the executive summary, touch on the recommendations initially, and then just move forward through the analysis, if that's okay with everybody. So as previously noted, this is an application for minor variance, specifically for 2 grain bins on the subject property. Bin A being the larger of the 2 grain bins at 11 meters in diameter, and grain B being middle of the road, if I recall correctly, approximately 7 meters in diameter. The required or the requested minor variance for grain bin A, that is the one closest to the roadway, is for a minor variance of 4.5 meters from the required 20 meters. That is a reduction of 77.5% and from what is the standard. Grain bin B is a minor variance of 17.5%. So a lot less significant. As previously noted, the variances are intended to facilitate the construction of 3 grain bins, well, 2 specifically, of which they have already commenced construction. So concrete pads have been poured. Site context. As discussed previously, it's on the east side of Bethel Road, between Burnham Line and Brickyard Line. And it is an existing, do we have an aerial photo we can put up, or does everybody have access to it?
We have access.
Okay, perfect. No, that's fine. So it was just more for site context. So if you take a look at page 17, you will note the location of 6854 Bethel Road. It's a little zoomed out there, but there is a farmyard there with an access on these to the site. Just so everybody is familiar with the location. The eastern portion of the site is the protected woodland and is subject to the Conservation Authority's regulated area, while the eastern portion is not, and so is it's agriculturally zoned. The comparative analysis was completed for properties within a 2-kilometer radius, investigating whether or not grain bins are located within the 20-meter required setback. That is found on an appendix 5. So that's page 21 of 23. You will note that for the grain bins identified in the area, all comply with the minimum 20-meter setback requirements. Of note, just so that everybody is clear, there were some typos. I missed including the addresses associated with the bottom 4 properties. Addresses are actually 7496 Brickyard Line, 7381 Brickyard Line, 7652 Burnham Line, and 7708 Burnham Line. Just for clarification, just so everybody is aware of that. The analysis also investigated whether or not along Bethel Road, other structures were in conformance with the bylaw. They were, but for one property, which it was deemed to be legal non-complying. It was a house built in the 1800s, and of course, sometimes the regulations change where houses weren't built in the appropriate location at that time. That's a legal non-complying structure. So taking a look at the application analysis of itself, so the test for the minor variances. Section 5.2.1 of the town's OP requires that the Committee of Adjustment grant a variance to the zoning bylaw, and that there are certain tests that need to be met. These tests being: 1, is the requested variance minor? 2, is the general intent and purpose of the official plan maintained? Is the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw maintained? That's number 3. Number 4, is the variance desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building, or structure? Moving forward, is the requested variance minor? There is no definition for what a minor variance is considered. So it must be dependent, or it must be determined based on the merits of each application. Every situation is different. In this instance, the requested minor variance for the front yard setback to grain A, given its deficiencies, is considered not minor. It is for arguably, let's say, a major variance that doesn't comply. For grain bin B, it is felt that the proposed variance is minor in nature, given the degree of the variance and the context of the area. So 4.5, 3.5 meter setback reduction, or 17.5% in an agricultural setting, is minor in nature. If it's, let's say, urban, we would argue that it was major. Is the general intent and purpose of the official plan maintained? It is. Ultimately, the OP calls or designates these lands as agricultural. This is for an agricultural operation. Yes, the intent of the official plan is maintained. Is the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw maintained? The general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw is maintained, but for the reduced setback. So in all other respects, the proposed activities comply. Particularly since they fall within the A1 zone, and these sort of uses are expected and anticipated in the A1 zone. Does the proposed minor variance adversely impact, is the minor variance desirable or appropriate for the development in the area, or use of land, building, or structure? Staff of the opinion is not for bin B, and the tests can't be met. Whereas, for bin A, where for bin B, we believe that the tests can be met. And therefore, not supportive of the variance for bin A. We feel that the proposed location for bin A could potentially cause a safety concern due to the loading and unloading of grain. So that reduced setback could have a long-term operational impact. So application analysis, provincial policy statement. This complies. It's an agricultural use on agricultural lands. County of Lambton official plan. This complies. It's an agricultural designated property. It is also has a environmental designation on it for that portion of the lands to the rear. It's part of a primary corridor. And so the intent of the application fits. The same thing for the township's official plan. It's designated agricultural and environmental, so it fits the intent. Now, when we were assessing site access and loading considerations, as noted, the site has a single access, approximately 5.5 meters in width of the property line, which appears to have been widened by approximately 4.5 meters to facilitate access to the site and the grain bins. When you review the aerial imagery, that 4.5 meters, it's approximate. Aerial imagery is never quite accurate, but that's what it seems to be. When reviewing or when determining this additional 4.5 meters and how we came to that, we took a look at the image provided by the applicant, see attachment 4, and you'll note the hydro pole. Page 20, you want to take a look at page 20 of 23. Yes, this guy right here. So I'll just wait a moment for Councillor Westgate. So in essence, utilizing the GIS and looking at the existing width and then extending it towards the hydro pole, we came up with an approximation of what we felt was what the widening has been. So that needs to be taken into consideration. The bylaw clarifies that accesses should be no more than 9 meters in width, for your information. The proposed setback of 4.5 meters to grain B or grain A is still of concern. There is the potential for vehicles to encroach into the road right away during loading or unloading, which poses a potential safety concern. As an example, I'm not a farmer, everybody else is, but a little Googling gets you a good idea on the length of a semi-truck. And a semi-truck is what, roughly 17.4 meters in long, truck and trailer, tractor trailer combo. So you have the potential of encroaching into the road right away. The applicant has provided a plan, and you'll want to take a look at page 19. of 23. The applicants noted that the setting of their agricultural equipment will not encroach into the road right away. We still remain concerned that there is a safety concern, and that is why we are not supporting the proposed variance for bin A. Operationally, and once again, I'm not a farmer, but if you move that auger in any way, given the length, you could arguably encroach into the road right away as you move a vehicle through that path. So that's a concern. Those are essentially our planning related matters. There are some road related matters of concern. And and I'll ask Andrew to, Mr. Maver to provide clarity where perhaps I am misspeak. But encroaching into a roadway or potentially encroaching into a roadway where you have a high speed, 80 kilometers an hour on a hill is a safety concern. There are sightline issues essentially. So that's one aspect of it. Another aspect is if you are needing to upgrade that roadway for any reason in the future, that may be a concern, particularly if you're establishing a ditch where there is no ditch currently well defined, but that process could occur. And so it's not what happens now, it's what happens in the long run as well, or potential. So that needs to be considered. And then, of course, general consideration for the hydropole itself and the proximity of the bin to the hydropole, but more specifically, the ability for any sort of equipment to easily navigate between the hydropole, which is essentially defined as being the property boundary based on our aerial imagery, and the proposed bin location. So that's of concern. So we want to make sure that people are, operating in a safe fashion. Nobody gets hurt. Our recommendations. I would ask you to go back to page 1. The minor variance application A04-2 for the lands legally described as concession 4, northeast, South Clark, lot 16, South Quarter, lot 16, be approved with the following conditions. That the proposed approximately 4.5 meter front yard setback variance for grain A be refused. That the proposed approximately 16.5 meter front yard setback to grain B be approved in accordance with the site plan attachment 2 of the report A-04-22. That the access to the site not exceed 9 meters in width of the property boundary, with confirmation of such being provided to the satisfaction of the township. That general conformance to the existing grade of the site be maintained, and that any changes to the site plan from those provided with this application may require a new variance application. That concludes my report. Questions?
Thank you, Louis.
Sorry.
We have questions now or at the end usually, don't we? Would like to, if the applicant has anything they would like to say, you can come up and use the mic and. Not currently. Is anyone else in attendance? Anything they would like to say? You can, yes.
Into here?
Yeah.
So, because I tapped through that. Okay. Well, I'm a landowner from the north of this site application, and as a farmer, I would share the same safety concerns that you have mentioned. The other one that I would be concerned with is the moving of grain while a farmer probably might not be in attendance, which happens all the time in busy season. And you're moving that grain to a 36 high foot bin that is adjacent to a road. where grain can spill over into the road or fly. We have the grain, one of the grain locations that's listed on here on 7515 Burnham line. And spills happen, pipes get holes in them. And if grain were to be flying through the air and someone's driving down the road, and now this is all, very hearsay. But if grain is flying through the air and someone's driving down the road at 50, 60 kilometers an hour, that could be an issue. And my second concern would be that a precedent be set, that you can just start building something and be in compliance after the fact that you start building. We have to follow all the rules. We may not like them, but we are putting building permits all the time, and we've been rejected for things that we can't do. So we move on and we try and be in compliance with the township. I think that's about it for me.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else here that would like to? Good. Members, now, have you any questions or comments you want to make?
I'm not so concerned about the loading aspect of it, but I am concerned about the safety aspect of it. I work in the grain industry, and yeah, I think the way the auger's set up and you can set them up, you can be safe that way, but I still don't think the bin should be that close to the road personally. I don't really have any questions.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty close to the road. And if you do allow that, it is a road that's not that busy. And then the next guy might want to build one on Egremont and say, hey, approve that one. And he wants to build it that close to Egremont Road, like just open a can of worms as far as I'm concerned.
There is a few properties that are very close to the road that some are approaching the road, like with septic tanks beside the road. And I mean, that's an actual residence where people would be staying and be a lot more apt to have high-speed intersections. And of course, with the respect to holding up traffic, not that it would actually let the trucks get off the road instead of, because my road is so narrow there. But so we can stop traffic loading trucks with grain buggies on roads for long periods of time with little to no lights and do 500,000 bushels like that on the road. But we're going to be concerned about this. Where do we start and stop on road disturbance now? Because it's definitely not really a road disturbance. I can prove how it's not, but loading on the road with buggies and semis are. Because that would be total traffic stop without permits or anything.
I understand that, and I see that all the time, Lyle.
Look at Plazzi.
No, I see that all the time, but there's no way to permit that.
Oh, it's illegal. And look at Plazzi Center.
Yeah, there's more than one. They're all over.
Mhm.
And it's 2 weeks of the year. And as your drying situation would be 2 to 3 weeks of the year as well. But there's no way to permit that, right? And we don't control the Highway Traffic Act.
I guess the loading and unloading doesn't concern me as much as we're a minor variance committee and we're supposed to look at things that are minor, and when you get to be over 75%, I can't call that minor anymore. So that is my problem with it. And if we allow this one, where do we stop? We have planners that have our experts in the field that we listen to, are supposed to listen to. We don't always agree with them. But I think this one is just a little bit over the allowance too much. Like it was, even if it was 25% or 30% in the along that road that's not that busy, I would go with it, but we're
Can you hear me?
75%.
Chairman, it's Ken Malonson from the county. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can barely hear you.
Sorry, I didn't make it back to my office, so I'm dialing in. Can you hear me okay now? Just want to make sure you know that I'm also here for questions to provide support for Lewis, if need be.
Okay, thank you. Have you anything you want to add since you're on there now?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, I think we need to go back to the main issue at hand of how we got here. That's always the starting point. The fact is that we have structures that were started without proper approvals that are in contravention to the zoning bylaw. And as you heard from Mr. Estevez, there are 4 very specific tests within your official plan to which the committee is also bound to. And you have to pass all of those tests in order to be granted a variance. So as you said earlier, Mr. Chairman, the one variance, you have the recommendation from both myself and Mr. Estevez that the bin A is beyond a minor variance. Once you don't meet the 4 tests, we can't recommend a variance. So yes, you may have passed 3 of the 4, but you have to pass them all. And one of the tests is not, whether you build, how do I put this? Intentional disregard of the bylaw is not an excuse to the fact that there is a set of rules that are there. So you need to weigh those things with the fact that you have a recommendation that the test for bin A is not workable, and then go from there.
Okay, thank you. I do believe that we're all okay with bin B. And bin A we can discuss when we make a decision. But I really don't want to set a precedent on this for it being out this far. Thank you. Does anybody else, anything they want to add?
I understand why you wanted to put it there, just for the footprint of the property. Keep it, you're just taking up a little more land, but yeah, looking at the overview, I totally get why you're doing it that way, but to me, it's too close to the road. That's all, just a comment.
And I did go out and look at it. It is close to the road. As there are no further questions, the committee hereby closes this portion of the meeting. Notice of decision will be mailed out within 10 days from the date of the committee's decision. The appeal period is 20 days after the date the decision is mailed. After that date, if there are no appeals filed, then the application becomes final and the property owner will be sent a notice. I'd like to thank everyone for attending. We don't need a motion to adjourn, do we? No. Okay. We want to go on and does anybody want anything they'd like to say now? We're out of the meeting.
Sorry, Jerry. I'm inclined to approve it. but I see why that wouldn't maybe get a second.
I'll make a motion that we approve bin B as variance accepted, as it's minor in nature, but bin A not be approved as a minor variance.
Well, call the question. All in favor? You see what we're up against.
I mean, it's gonna appeal to that too. There's no building and stuff, I mean,
Yeah.
put a scale up right beside the road there. There's a scale around the corner that actual trucks have to stop to come in and weigh in. You don't get 2 or 3 trucks in a row. I don't blame you for your decision, but I'm gonna appeal it.
So, Mr. Kimball, just if I'm. The appeal process is to the OLT. Oh, yes, it's the OLT, the Ontario Land Tribunal. Wait times, just so that you're aware, upwards of a year to 2 years. Okay, I'm just pointing it out. And you'll.
I just can't carry it on without.
Yep.
I guess that's all. Close the meeting.
Thanks, Councilor Westgate. I just have a question for clarity on the approval of the committee. So you noted bin A and bin B, but is it, or bin, whatever the numbers, is it the full recommendation from planning though? There were 5 points. If we could just clarify that, I think that would be helpful.
It would be the full,
Yeah, whatever's recommendation.
and that's the,
Yeah, it was the same. There was a clause related to the width of the access,
Yes.
just the grade of the site, and that a site plan be complied with. So just want to clarify that.
okay, now we can adjourn the meeting and you can shut us off. Thanks, everyone, for attending.
Thank you.
Good night, Mr. Chairman.